everyone. Welcome to Time on Track, a worn and wound podcast where we discuss all the fun of Formula One. I am Amravir, and I'm joined here by Ricardo. Ricardo, how are you doing today?
Doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I am still reeling from a weekend of Formula One where I was at the Vegas Grand Prix. So can't wait to talk about that on today's episode.
Nice. I was very envious. It seemed like of the Grand Prix to go to this year, that was probably one of the best ones to be in attendance. There was a lot of passing, a lot of overtaking, and it definitely feels like that track has matured from year to year. It's now become quite an interesting track. As long as you have competitive cars on that track, I think that becomes a very interesting and good race. If you have just one guy kind of like spanking everybody like we did last year, that's one thing. But when you have like some of the quality that we're seeing this year, it seems like it was a good race.
It was a good race, and we can definitely talk about some of the fun aspects of the track. But I think one cool thing about it is for a street circuit, I mean, most of the track is down like Las Vegas Boulevard, the Vegas Strip. It's wide. So whereas you think of like a street circuit like Monaco or Singapore where things are real tight, like this, they have space, and it's basically turn, drag. Like they're just, just super long straights. So there's a lot of opportunity for passing here. And
I saw a lot of eights on the driver's dashboard, a lot of eights, and I'm just like, wow, especially
they're
that
running through those gears.
With those straights, like 207, 208, like I just saw a lot of speed. I was just like, okay, I wish I was here to see this, but it is what it is. We'll
definitely get into it.
We'll get into it, but before we get into the rest of the show, definitely have to start off with our wrist check. What are you wearing, my friend?
I am wearing my trusty blue Tudor Pelagos. If there's probably been a theme of this podcast for me for the wrist checks, you'll probably see me wearing this watch a lot because it's just so good. The Tudor. I'm just a dude with a tude.
Listen, you can't go wrong with the Pelagos.
No. What about you? What do you got on?
I am wearing I'm gonna call it the roulette, but really it's the eBay. I'm wearing the Zodiac eBay edition.
Oh, that's cool.
With the eBay colors on the markers of the dial. And you also have them on the bezel, which is also a countdown bezel, which I'm particularly fond of. Tossed this on one of our blue straps, and I like how it looks. I mean, like it's every once in a while I have to put on a Zodiac and just be like, these aren't bad at all. These are not bad at all.
No, they're pretty high quality, especially for the price point you get. It's pretty nice. But yeah. Oh, speaking of watches, I will say I didn't see it in person, but there was some really fun watch spotting this weekend. And then one cool watch was did you see the Tudor confetti dial for the V-carb team?
I love when a brand goes all in with with a watch. Like it was like everybody sat at the conference room table. The fashion designer came in and said, "This will encompass everything: the car, the watch, everything." So like the clothing. So like you saw the clothes that Yuki was wearing.
Mm-hmm.
You saw the car and the pattern.
The livery on the car. It looked pretty sick in person. I'm gonna say that. Like it was pretty cool. And I gotta say, like there was, I think I showed you I posted that reel or video of like the line for the merch shop. Mm-hmm. Like it was hours long. So I did not go to the merch store. So sorry, we don't have any merch for you, Ricardo.
Okay.
But the one piece of merch that I really wanted from this weekend was that V-carb confetti sweater that they had like Terry Crews running around in. It was pretty awesome. I wanted that so bad, but I couldn't find it.
It was great. It was. Yeah. I just love that. Like it seems like everyone just came together on one thing, and we're all in agreement. And it was cool to see because the watch so continues that design, like from the strap,
Hmm.
like then becoming the top of the dial, then transitioning to the bottom of the dial, then transitioning to the rest of the strap. It's like a really cool design. If it, that's one thing I really appreciate about Tudor. Tudor doesn't really care about taking risk or taking a chance like that. You would not see
Yeah.
that from a lot of brands.
No.
Like that was just straight, okay, we're gonna do it. It sounds cool. Let's do it.
And like, am I going to wear a black ceramic confetti dial Tudor? No.
No.
But it was cool to see.
Yeah.
Like, the idea that it's out there is awesome. I like that.
And someone is definitely gonna wear that. Like
I mean, so
someone is for sure going to wear that.
I went to and we will talk about this because I want to talk about my own little visitor guide to Vegas during the Grand Prix. But I went to the Tudor boutique and was talking to the sales reps there, and they were saying like, yeah, they weren't for sale, but we had both of them in here because apparently they shipped them from Switzerland to that boutique. So they're like, we had them all week, and we're just staring at them, waiting for them to pick them up. And they were like, they were really cool, but they weren't for sale to the public, which was kind of crazy.
But
Yeah,
cool. Still
cool.
cool. Still cool.
All right.
Okay. Let's jump
Do
into the race.
Yeah, you want to do the same kind of recap we did last week? I think that worked really well.
Yeah. It was nice and seamless. So you know what? I'll dive in and then you'll finish it off. But quick recap. Second year in Vegas. It was, I'd have to say, it feels like the Vegas has matured in terms of being a track. Definitely feel like we got better racing. I think a big part of that was, there's the cars are closer together in terms of performance. So it really allowed the track to shine with like the DRS zones, the long straights, great overtaking. I mean, there was one time that we have to talk about this Checo going 3 right into that chicane.
Oh yeah,
It's
that was
just
cool.
crazy. But really started at practice. The drivers consistently complained about a lack of grip because this is a night race, and I don't think people realize just how Vegas can go from hot to cold really quickly. Took a while for the tires to warm up. So, of course, they were experiencing issues with grip. Some of them were experiencing issues with grip, but you know who wasn't experiencing issues with grip? Mercedes. For
Yeah.
some reason, that car, when it is cold, works like a beast. So they found themselves leading free practice one, free practice two. You had Lewis just really just taking it to the rest of the field. Free practice three, you saw Russell lead that one. So basically, Mercedes leading all of free practices, and all of us Mercedes fans basically think, okay, that means they're going to finish 7th and 8th in the race because that's how it usually goes. But instead, that performance it continued um, into qualifying, where Russell got pole. We really thought we were going to see Hamilton maybe get sneak in there for P2, but I mean between a little snap of the rear end and some issues like on his final lap. I kind of do wish he had gone out a little bit earlier and not taking the chance of going out so late. But he ended up finishing Q3 and P10. And then our top three going into the race was Russell, Sainz, and Monsieur Gasly in P3. Alpine continuing its push to try to solidify P6 in the championship. Really enjoying the fact that Pierre was able to get into P3, but that was quite short lived, which is something that Armaver is not going to talk about.
Yeah, the race itself, that was fun. But it was a continuation of Mercedes and mostly, I think, Russell's dominance. We had a strong start from Russell and actually Charles Leclerc, who started in fourth. Um, but he started challenging Russell for that first position, but then I think probably cooked his tires. There was a lot of talk about tire greening and tire degradation. People thought this was going to be a one-stop race and ended up being a two-stop race for most people. So Leclerc, who started off strong, ended up falling back. Mercedes continued to just dominate. And besides Russell, I think, controlling the race from start to finish, we saw Hamilton go from that P10 position from qualifying, he stormed through the whole pack. He went from P10 ultimately to P2. Russell ultimately won. Hamilton finished second, so Mercedes had a 1-2. Ferrari had a 3-4 with Sainz on the podium and Leclerc in fourth. So there was some Ferrari drama that we can talk about. We said Pierre Gasly started in P3. He was a DNF because his power unit failed. So sad day for the Alpine team. But most importantly, and I think probably where we're going to have to start today, Max Verstappen finished in the most important fifth place of his life because he was fifth place ahead of sixth place Lando Norris, and Max Verstappen secured his fourth consecutive Drivers' World Championship. That was pretty awesome to be there for. I will say that. But yeah, that was the race. I think a couple weekend highlights to start off. Obviously, I think we have to start off with Mr. Four-time Max Verstappen. What do you think of his race?
Um, it showed maturity, which I hope continues. And the reason I say that is he didn't push, and there was no reason to push. Like Max sometimes could be his own worst enemy in terms of he will always try to go for the win or try to go for a better position. And you kind of saw it early on in the race where I think there was a message between him and his pit basically saying, hey man, remember, you know, you remember, kind of something along those lines.
Yeah.
And he just had a calm response with like, yeah, I know. And the race was basically like, my goal isn't to win this race. My goal is just to finish ahead of Lando Norris.
Right.
Like, that's basically my goal. Now, who's to say what would have happened if, you know what, he was stuck behind Lando in the waning laps of this race? Who knows? But for the most part, he was able to keep himself in front of Lando and secure this fourth title. Really, I'd have to say this has been like a sandwich effort from him. I think the first year, that first 2021 was epic. I don't think we're going to get a year of racing like that for a long, long time. Hopefully, who knows what next year brings, but 2021 was epic. And I feel like this year was epic in some ways. It could have been even more epic-er, if that makes sense. But I think when you put it alongside like the last 2 years of his campaign, like it was just better racing. It was just better racing for the viewer. It was more entertaining. It was more interesting. And he you know what, he had a lot of points in the bag, which allowed him to kind of secure this win. But still, like I'd have to say races 12 to 21 just made this whole season really, really interesting. So yeah, I mean, he really, I think, solidified himself along with the greats. Well, I take that back. Brazil solidified himself
Yeah.
along with all the greats. This race was more of just like a quick, I'm finished. But like Brazil will go down. Like, you know, when they do the documentaries and they're talking about drivers, Brazil is going to be one of those drivers for him.
So
Like in his documentary.
so we on the last podcast or the last episode, we talked about, I mentioned there was like this clip that the F1 YouTube channel cut of like basically Max's race in Brazil and all his overtakes, all his radio messages. I've probably watched that like 8 times since Brazil, just like reflecting back on how ridiculous that drive was. And each time I watched it, I was just like, wow, like that was, I think at the end of his career, that might be one of his iconic or his iconic drives. Like that was him taking this 2024 title. It was pretty awesome to see. I did have, so I agree with you. It was a mature drive from him today or this weekend.
But
You know, in
I think I know where you're going. But I'll let you go.
oh no, I was just gonna say, like, you know, in races past, especially seasons past, this guy still, regardless, like when he was ahead in the points, like he still went out and tried to win every race. And I kind of in the past couple of years, like 2021, I wasn't a Max fan because I really wanted Lewis Hamilton to win. But when you started seeing him in 2022 and 2023, what I appreciated from him was that he just wanted to just kill. Like he went
Yeah.
out and dominated every
On
race.
your
And
neck.
it's like, yep.
Put
And it's
on
like
your neck to the ground.
when he had this, the championship already locked up, he still went out and won every Grand Prix he could. And I really appreciated that. It's like, oh, this guy's here to win. What we saw in Vegas this year was different, but I thought also good. Like he, the math was there. He just had to beat Lando, and he had everything locked up. And I think at one point, I think it was Lewis was challenging him, and
He
I was
let
like,
him right
"Oh,
by.
great! I was like, we're gonna get a Max Lewis battle. This is gonna be fun." And then Max was like, "Not my race. You keep going."
I think, but I think a large part of that as well is he just hasn't had the car. Like he hasn't had the car, like especially this weekend. This weekend, the Mercs were dominant.
Yeah, and the Red Bull, like there was all this controversy about they didn't even bring the correct wing.
Yeah, they had to like cut pieces off to lower the profile, which is crazy.
Well, Joe Dirt stuff in Vegas.
Yeah, you're a multi-million-dollar company.
Yeah.
How does that happen? But I digress. No,
but also I think that whole point of them not having the good car, I think that's why this 2024 season has been incredible for Max. Like we've seen him dominate with a good car, but then we've also seen him just like dig deep and pull this out when he needed to with a car that started off strong. And then for everything that's happened with Red Bull this season, going back to Christian Horner at the beginning of the season, just embroiled in controversy, which I don't think anyone should forget.
Yeah.
That's not done yet.
Remember,
we're not just going to sweep that under the rug. To Adrian Newey leaving, to all this stuff between Helmut Marko and Jos Verstappen and everything, and obviously what the heck is going on with Checo Perez, for Max to still just put that entire organization on his back and pull this out, pretty incredible. Crazy season for him.
And you know what? In the moments of celebrating, in the moments after the race, where he also had a little toot. Like he had a little toot. He went ham on a couple of people. Zach Brown.
That was pretty good.
That was pretty good. Like, his memory is long. He has an elephant's memory. You're like, oh, you remember when he said that? Well, I probably would have did it much better in your car.
That was amazing. That's like people are going like, oh, that was a nice little jab. I was like, no, that was a clinch, and that was an elbow during the clinch. You know what I mean? Like
that was one of those. Those sleeve.
Yeah.
That was
I like
jab.
that. I like that a lot. Yeah.
And you know what? It was deserving. And I think
absolutely
transitioning over into what I felt just disappeared this weekend in terms of Lando Norris. That whole organization deserves what they just got, which is not to win the Drivers' Championship, and furthermore deserves not to win the constructors. Like at this point, like I'm all for Ferrari. At this point, I want Ferrari to win it because this. And we said this when they said this episodes ago. Hungary, when they opened their big mouths and said, "You're gonna need him later on this season. There are going to be opportunities."
Yeah.
Hey, what are you watching? This is F1. Then forget the rest of the season. The next race is not guaranteed.
Right. And it felt like McLaren walked into this weekend with their tail between their legs.
Yes, they did.
The way they were talking about, it was a good season, it was a good fight, but we weren't even here for the Drivers' Championship. We were here for the constructors.
Fully cooked.
Yeah.
Fully cooked.
And what's interesting is we've been talking about Lando. Oscar Piastri has quietly fallen off.
Yes.
The kind of back half of the season. I get it. It's his second year. Like, I think he's probably my driver to watch next year, especially if McLaren's car is still good after winter testing. But it's been interesting to see how much he's fallen back, and he's been in the points, but he's been in the back half of that top 10, which has been interesting.
Yeah. And people out there, do not use the excuse of, oh, the team is now favoring Lando, and that's why he's fallen off. No, 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 no. He is still needed to help Lando, which means him doing better is actually beneficial to the team, and he has not been doing well
Yeah.
the past few races. So let's not try to, because all I've heard is how great this kid is, how much better than Lando Norris he is, how like the team should have put him ahead of that's all I was hearing for race after race after race. It's his second year.
Yeah.
Hold your horses, calm down. He's not quite there yet. Lando's still the better overall racer on that team. And we can all agree McLaren effed up his chances throughout this season.
Yeah. I'll
So
agree that McLaren effed up his chances throughout the season. I am very curious to see how they start next season with, I would say they actually do have two number one drivers.
yeah.
And who's going to come out to the hotter start? I don't know. We can save that for
Listen,
later episodes.
I don't say this about many drivers because I don't know. I honestly don't want that to be the case. But I honestly believe Lando Norris needs to turn villain next year. He needs to turn villain. He can't.
With that baby face and that little
Yeah,
smile, I don't think he has
no,
it.
he needs to. I think for his career, like he like I've heard so many things, like he pays attention to everything that's written about him. He does like he needs to become villain. Either he becomes villain or he just tunes everybody out.
Yeah.
It'll help him in the long run. Like he needs to have like the LeBron Miami like experience. Like this year was LeBron Miami year one. Everybody hating you. Everybody saying like, you can't do it. And he needs to have that coming the next year to be like, okay, that's what he needs. This was his LeBron Miami year one. And at some point in this year, he said, not one, not two, not three. That was his arc.
Well, you know, it's funny. You say not one, not two, not three. You got Max Verstappen 4 in a row.
That's it.
He's the one who said that.
Yeah. So it's
So
just
yeah.
it's like it needs like Lando needs to change the way he thinks about this and 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 really just assert a sense assert dominance on the team. I think that's the first place to start. He needs to maybe grow a beard, grow some facial hair, like get rid of the baby face look, look like a grizzled veteran, which he is. And just really bring it next year. I need to see Lando 2.0.
Yeah.
Lando 1.0, I'm
Lando, if you do listen to everything and you do take it all in, then I hope you listen to this podcast. You'll understand that 1, you need to grow a beard. 2, you need to watch LeBron James tape. And 3, you need to be an angry man. So Lando, if you're listening, which we know you are, because who doesn't? We'll see you next year. But I think that's enough about McLaren, because we're going to be talking about them probably in Qatar and Abu Dhabi to finish out the season, because it's really going to
we're
come
not going
down
to talk
to
about them. We're not going to talk about. We'll only talk about them in terms of constructors. But I
yeah,
think
we
as
have
this
to.
race showed, the second it was no longer a competition, they disappeared.
They did. They did.
I think I
But
could count on my hands the amount of times I heard Lando Norris this whole week during that race. So yeah.
it was
But yeah,
I think let's give some kudos to Max Verstappen. It's crazy that he gets to join the likes of like Prost and Vettel and Schumacher and Hamilton with 4 plus. Pretty amazing accomplishment for him. But speaking of disappearing and reappearing, Mercedes.
ooh la la.
I know everybody. All I've heard this whole weekend is cold weather, cold weather. Yeah. Ricardo's doing the Mercedes hat dance right now. It's pretty good.
Yes, I am.
I think we just got to just touch on, I mean, what a dominant race that was for George Russell. Watching that in person, I got to say, like, he would come around and then you could count like 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to fully count it out, and you wouldn't even hear the next car. That's how far ahead he was. It was crazy. So just perfectly executed weekend. by Mercedes and for the Russell pit team. Um, I don't think they'll be able to recreate that because I don't think they even know how the hell that happened, and they've said just as much. Uh, but what do you think of Lewis Hamilton going from P10 to P2? And what do you think of his late push to get within, was it like 5 seconds of George Russell?
I will say that was a statement drive. If I've ever seen one before, it was a clear, when given the car, I can be dominant. Which I know some people would be like, okay, but then that means you have the car, so that automatically means you're dominant. Look at Lando Norris. That's not the case.
Fair
So,
point.
so
Look at
the,
Checo.
yeah, look at Checo. So having the car is a part of the formula. You still need to put in the performance to get the most out of the car. And when given the car, there are a handful of people who know how to consistently pull the performance out of it. Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton. I want to say Alonso, but this second half, Alonso has
No,
been
he's mailing it
interesting.
in. He's collecting a paycheck
I
right
think
now.
he's mailing it in, but I think those two for sure. Those two for sure. Right now on the field, like there's no question. Those
Okay,
two.
Alonso definitely you got to put in that conversation as well. But I just one highlight on Alonso.
Sure.
I still think back to his comment in the beginning of the season where he's like, "Why would I entertain Mercedes? Our car's faster." It's like,
I mean,
what are you doing,
we'll see.
Fernando?
We'll see what happens when Newey gets his hands on that car, but
Oh, I
still,
don't have high
and that's,
hopes.
but mind you, that's 2 years he's opened his big mouth, and it's come to
Mm.
bite him. Last year, you remember when he said,
What did he say last
um,
year?
he was talking about being on the podium and how oh yeah, Merc is coming back, but yeah, our car is going to be better for the rest of the year. And
Oh
he said
goodness,
something along those lines, and completely that did not happen. But
Fernando.
no, I think it just showed, and it's why I hope he gets a good car at Ferrari. It shows he still has the talent and the experience in
Mm-hmm.
there to really put it. What I think he needs to work on, and it's crazy me saying this for a 7-time world champion, is his qualifying. I think especially with Ferrari, I think in the past he's gotten used to really just leaning back on Mercedes and what they may say to him, what they're telling him is the best option. I think in Ferrari he's going to have like just a louder voice in terms of what he wants, what he feels is the better way to go, a la Carlos Sainz.
Mm-hmm.
So I that's what I feel, and I feel like once he does that, like simple things like, hey, I want to go out early for Q3. I don't want to take no chances. Like things like that. Like he just you know, he's been with this lover for like years. And now he's about to leave this lover and he's going to another one. And this is his opportunity to really just kind of be himself and like
Mm-hmm.
kind of unshackle himself from what that long relationship does. Like, yes, it builds a lot of trust, but at the same time, there's a lot of complacency. Whereas like you're about to start a new relationship, you know what? You may say, hey, I don't like
All
when
right,
you take all the
Ricardo.
covers, or I don't like
Okay,
like
Ricardo.
I'm just saying, I'm just saying, that's how I see it. Like he's about to
Yeah,
walk into this new relationship opportunity to really set a new standard
yeah.
for what
And
he wants
it's
out of
interesting
the
you say
relationship.
that. I think we had on our list of things to talk about is what the heck happened at Ferrari this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And part of watching Ferrari this weekend was thinking about Lewis Hamilton going there.
Mm-hmm.
And even in the Fred Vasseur era, they are making weird strategic decisions
Mm-hmm.
that is not going to fly with Lewis Hamilton. And I
Yeah.
think he needs to set that from the beginning,
Yeah.
right? Like, so I only kind of caught this at the end because from where I was sitting, you couldn't see the pit, you couldn't see all the crazy stuff happening, and you couldn't hear the radios. But clearly, Carlos Sainz and Leclerc both were not happy at the end of the race with how the race went, even with Sainz finishing in third and Leclerc in fourth. There was some weird instructions from the team to let Leclerc buy Sainz, only to have Sainz then box. But then as he's pulling into the pits, the
We know
team tells
ready.
him
We know ready.
the team tells him to
go
to get out.
We know ready. We know ready.
Which I haven't checked this morning, but as of last night, he was still considered P3 for this race, which to go through, like to basically exit past that white line, cross the pit line, that should be a pretty decent penalty. He actually should be dropping back in points. He shouldn't have finished P3. Like, he should have had a time penalty after that race. But I don't think anything's actually happened yet.
No.
Which is interesting. Leclerc obviously was upset because, I don't know, he's too nice of a guy. But I don't know. Ferrari had a crazy weekend. The team is clearly dealing with the struggles of a little bit of infighting, and Sainz having a foot and a half out the door now, like ready to go to Williams and trying to, I think, win as many races as he can before maybe looking at a future where he's not on the podium next year. So am I sad for Leclerc, who says he's being a nice guy and giving up positions? No. If anything, Leclerc, like, get used to this feeling, because when you have Lewis Hamilton elbows out, I don't think you're going to be dealing with the same situation.
Yeah. I don't know. So next year's going to be interesting. Like, I heard that message, and honestly,
Leclerc's F-bomb tirade at the end of the race.
Honestly, you know what that sounded to me? That sounded like someone talking a lot, but not doing a lot. A lot of heavy language. But like, don't say those things. Do those things. Mm-hmm. You felt that wasn't right? You know what? Pull a Carlos Sainz on a Carlos Sainz. Yeah. But guess what? You couldn't this weekend, because guess who had the better pace? Carlos.
Yeah, I mean, Carlos took care of his tires better.
Yeah. So because you decided, I'm going to fight Russell, who's clearly been the super dominant car this whole weekend, and cook your tires within the first few laps of the race.
Yeah.
So don't blame Carlos Sainz. The numbers will show you over the course of their time together that Leclerc is the overall better driver. But Leclerc sometimes does not, take advantage of some of the poles and things that he has done. During the race, if given an advantage, Carlos Sainz is a dog. He will go for it.
He makes the moves.
He makes the moves. So listen, I love Carlos's approach. He didn't say a thing. Not a thing. He hasn't made a comment. He's just been like,
Well, apparently the reason he didn't say anything is because, like Leclerc said, that you need to hear those comments in Spanish. Did you hear that? Or he's like,
yes, I did.
They're like,
he was like, maybe you should tell him in Spanish.
Yeah, which, my goodness, Charles.
Yeah.
Take a step back.
Charles, you're starting to show the Monaco pinky real quick. I'm just saying.
Exactly.
The Monaco pinky is coming up. Like this entitled attitude. Like, let's talk. Like, come on. Like, that's basically parallel. Like, that's parallel to learn some English. That's basically what you. Those are along the same lines.
Problematic.
Very problematic. Let's not go there, Charles. Let's take it easy. Let's put the Monaco pinky down. Let's just get back to racing, please.
And they've got, they need to figure it out, because they have a really big opportunity on their hands here to basically, in the next two races, win the Constructors' Championship, something Ferrari hasn't done in a long time. And McLaren also hasn't done it in, like, I think 20-something years. But man, if you're talking about one fan base that would really, really appreciate a Constructors' Championship, it's going to be Ferrari. So I hope they figure it out and compete over the next few races. I mean, this was actually a big weekend for them to take points from McLaren, but
Yeah,
come on,
they
Ferrari.
weren't able to maximize it because the Merc team decided to show up.
Yeah, I mean, you never know when that's going to happen. Apparently.
Hmm.
Um,
Um, so Amavir, we've
yes,
talked about the race, we've talked about Ferrari, the drama, but I mean, we have to talk about your overall experience in Las Vegas, the City of Lights.
yes.
Please, please do tell. Like, give paint a picture for our listeners.
Okay, I'm going to say this as someone who grew up watching F1 as an American. I I've said this before. Like, I had this thought as a child that cool, this is a European sport. I'm never going to be able to go to an F1 race ever in my life. Like the idea that, flying to Monaco, staying at a hotel in Monte Carlo and watching the F1 race, this was something that could never happen. And then for me to wake up on Saturday morning, get in my car and drive to a Formula One track, like I was thinking about that all weekend. Like I just drove here and I'm now sitting in a grandstand watching Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen and Fernando Alonso. Like
Which is such
how
a European experience.
I
The
had
Europeans
the
get to do
Eiffel
this all the
Tower in the
time.
background.
Yeah, yeah. The European, yeah.
It was just surreal in a lot of ways. And I went to Mexico last year, and that was its own experience. And um, and we can talk about those as a comparison. They're both really fun weekends to be at. But yeah, just the idea that I got in my car, drove to a Formula One race, got back in my car on Sunday morning, and drove home, and was back at my house in time for lunch. Like that was wild. Um, okay, here's some fun things to think about if you're going to the Formula One race. Well, here's some fun things just for the weekend in general. The track itself, they don't close it down till like 4 or 5 p.m. So during the day, you can just walk around the Vegas Strip and there's traffic going up and down the track. And like there's rubber down from qualifying from the night before. Like there was like inches of rubber down. Well, not inches, maybe millimeters of rubber down from whoever was just ripping through the tires
I
the night
would have
before.
grabbed the sample. I would just grab the sample.
Yeah,
But
like
continue.
no, it's just like yeah, the debris off the curbs and all that stuff, like that is just there. Like any bit of carbon fiber that had been come off a car the night before, it's just on the floor. But then people are driving around in their old Land Rovers down Las Vegas Strip, leaking oil everywhere. People, it's Vegas tourists. They're throwing trash out the window. It's like the dirt, the debris, the oil, the liquids. Up until 5 hours before race day, before the actual race, that's all just on the track itself. And yeah, they sweep it and everything, but man, it just that is to me is a crazy thing that you're just right there on the track um, during the day. Uh, I would say this year Vegas definitely figured it out from all the hotel and staff I was talking to. Logistically, they got it right. I will give one pro tip: if you're gonna get a hotel room in Vegas, go to the northeast side of the strip. So like the Wynn Encore Resort World area, the convention center area. You're not in the mix of the track up there. So getting on and off the freeway to and from the airport is going to be a lot easier. So if you want like an easy logistical experience, get a hotel on the north side of the track. Um, also skip the monorail if you're trying to get around. That was an absolute cluster. Uh, I got a
Just walk.
monorail. Yeah, I got a monorail ticket to go to the race, thinking it'd be faster than walking. It was not. By the time where they drop you off for the Sphere, which is where I was sitting, to actually get to your seating area, was equivalent to me walking to the Sphere myself from my hotel. So that was a bust. Monorail, figure it out. As someone who works in land use and like city planning, like that monorail was a joke. Um, what else do we want to talk about?
But
Uh,
like, how was the seating? How is the Sphere? I've wanted to see that in person. Like
Same.
that
Okay,
thing
so
just
I hadn't seen it in person yet, and it was cool. Like it was really cool to like. There's just this giant just ball just with all this crazy stuff going on. It was cool. So yeah, I sat in the T-Mobile Sphere area, which was pretty awesome. Um, it's, I would say, on the track wise, it's probably on one of the least interesting parts of the track because it's like turns 5 through 7, and then a kind of a longer straight into turn 8 or 9. Um, it's cool because you get to see them go slow through the chicane and then kind of accelerate out. Uh, the speed in Vegas is a lot faster than where I was sitting in Mexico. I was in the baseball stadium in Mexico.
Mhm.
So you have to mentally adjust for cars going by at whatever 160 to 180 miles an hour. So after a couple laps, like your mind catches up with the speed, but like
Mhm.
at first it's just like overwhelming how fast they're going. But the sphere area itself, okay, here's my pro tip. Uh, the general admission ticket in the sphere area is as good as a grandstand seat in the sphere area. I found myself walking around and going up to the actual race wall and enjoying that experience more than sitting in my grandstand ticket area.
Mhm.
So
Interesting.
next year, if I were to go back next year, I'd want to be at the start because I think seeing the pit experience is probably most enjoyable in Vegas.
And
Um,
that curve at towards the beginning of the the start finish line seems pretty interesting.
so the
Like coming
back
off at the
straight,
straight,
yeah,
yeah.
the back straight turns 15 and 16, I think it is. Right before that last turn, that's where the passing happens. That's where the
Mhm.
hard braking happens. That's I think that is the best place to sit. Uh, they have, I think that's the Harmon area they call it. So that would be that, and the front straight would be where I'd want to sit.
Mhm.
Um, when you're at the Sphere area, you don't get to see all that. And this, unlike Mexico, where they open up the track for you afterwards and you can walk to the podium celebration, you couldn't do that here because that all takes place at the Bellagio Hotel.
Yeah.
Um, so if you want more of an experience, and if this is your first F1 race, like try to go to the grandstand at the start or that turns 15, 16. But if you're in the Sphere area, it's still a really fun experience. But don't discount the GA ticket. It actually, I think, was the better deal, like
Mhm.
by a lot. And if those first other two sections I was saying sell out, I'm definitely doing GA by the Sphere again. Um, another benefit of the Sphere is like Ludacris performed, and he was actually awesome. Ludacris had like a 30-minute set, and he was good.
Wow.
Uh,
He seems like he would be a good performer. I
I
try to
mean,
think about his music. Most of his music is legible. Well,
yeah,
legible isn't the word, but you know what I
I know what
mean.
you mean. I know what you mean.
Like you could follow along and
Yeah,
sing with him and not
right.
be like, what did he just say? No, no. So yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
I can see
and I definitely had a senior moment where it's like you realize all the other elder millennials in the crowd are the ones really enjoying it, and you're like, wow, I'm getting up there. This song's 20 years old. But that was cool. Yeah, and also bring a jacket. It's cold, but it's not freezing. Bring, and this is good for the worn and wound folk. Bring a windproof jacket because it's not cold like frigid. It's cold because of the wind.
Win.
And
Gotcha.
I had like a Polar Tech like Sherpa fleece, and I was chilling with that in a t-shirt, whereas other people in their hoodies or whatever were dying. So
Yeah. Yeah.
get
Yeah.
your
No,
get
no,
your wind
no cotton,
protection in.
no cotton hoodies. No
Yeah.
cotton hoodies. They'll just go right through.
Uh,
But man, that sounds like an amazing experience. Like
yeah.
I yearn to see my first F1 race. I really, really, really want to go to one. But no, that just sounds like a really cool experience. Like
It
for
was
me,
cool.
I feel like TV. There are benefits of watching it on TV. You kind of feel like you're following along more with throughout the whole race.
Hmm.
But what I feel TV still lacks, and I feel like they don't know how to communicate, is just the speed of those cars.
Yeah.
Like you watch them on TV, not to say they look like they're going slow, but they don't look like they're going as fast as like I've watched some of these mobile phone videos of cars like going through the track, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, that seems a lot faster than what it looks like on TV.
Yeah, I put some stories up of just like them like holding my phone in position and then just the cars flying by the sphere. It was It's crazy. It's 180 miles an hour in person's a lot faster.
Yeah. It
Uh,
it I kept they had like a view of like through the Checo chicane, which is what I'm now going to call it
the
because we
too
didn't
wide
even talk
turn.
about
Yeah,
that.
that was that was a crazy turn or a
Not
crazy
only
pass.
not only was that a crazy pass, but it was on Liam Lawson.
Yeah.
And
Can we give a shout out to Yuki also, by the way? He had a
I,
great race. There was two things that was so fun watching this race from an experience standpoint. Watching just George Russell dominate and being so far ahead. It was the same in Mexico. Max was so far ahead.
mm,
But then Yuki in a battle with Nico Hulkenberg, and I'm forgetting who else, but they were like three deep for so much of the race, and just like
mhm.
Yuki was defending. That was pretty cool. But I'm sorry, I sidetracked you talking about Checo
No. Listen,
and Lawson.
I really did like that battle was just amazing. But what I wanted to highlight was for some reason, like not for some on that like particular chicane, um, they have a view, a camera view looking through the chicane, and it's
Mm-hmm.
basically a left, right, left,
Mm-hmm.
and like you see how quickly the car changes like direction, and it's crazy. All of it happens in maybe the span of 1 to 2 seconds, but that car is literally going left, right, left, bang,
Yeah.
like so fast. And I put that in my head, thinking then about like Checo's move. That was a ballsy move. That was I'm either making this move or I'm getting out. I'm not gonna end this race. Plain and
Yeah.
simple. It is what it is.
It
Like
almost felt like the in cockpit view of that move was like he was going for a pass on one, didn't realize there were two, and you could almost time the point in his head where he was like, "Oh, this
yeah,
is gonna be scary."
yeah. Moves like that require one person to back up.
Uh-huh.
One person has to make the business decision.
Yeah.
Like one of the three drivers has to say, okay, this is not going to work for all of us. I'm
Yeah.
going to be the better person and I'm going to back out so
Yeah.
that we can all survive this.
Whoever's looking at the wall.
Yeah, yes. Who, and in this instance, it was whoever was on the outside of that turn because Chico
Mm-hmm.
snuck up the middle. You had Liam in the Chico stuck up the left side, Liam in the middle, and then who was out there on the right? Was it Hulkenberg or was it Sonoda?
It might have been no, it might have been Magnuson actually.
Yeah, yeah,
I think it was one of the Haas's.
passes, but it was just a crazy move. It was
Yeah.
really like just overall. I think this weekend really gave us some good racing, some interesting storylines. Yeah, I was really happy with this race. I mean, like
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess that you felt the same.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was there. It was cool. I think what you're saying about how quickly they move, one thing when you're there in person, and I remember this now, is like once you adjust to the actual speed and you can look at the cars themselves, it is crazy how flat these cars are going at 100 plus miles an hour.
Yeah,
Like there is no roll at all. The car is so planted and
yeah,
just so glued to the track. It's pretty remarkable to see in person.
yeah. It really it's still I laugh at when I'm trying to explain this to someone. Like in instances like that, the person driving the car is doing the most moving.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
not the car. The car is so planted in what it's doing, like in terms of an axis,
Yeah.
like to around an axis in terms of movement. The thing actually doing the most movement is just the driver, and
Yeah.
they're still snug in a seat, but they're probably moving a lot more than that car is moving around the axis. Yeah, seeing a car go through a fast chicane is nasty work. It's
It's
just
crazy.
like wow,
It's
like
crazy.
we built this. Like this is crazy.
Yeah.
But
I will
yeah,
one last point. For the worn and wound listener, the Vegas Grand Prix might be the track to go to, not just because it's a fun F1 experience, but because when you're not doing F1 stuff, you can go. This is the best watch shopping, I think, town in the United States. Like the, I was at Bucherer, and apparently, like right before I walked in there, they're like, "Oh my God, you just missed it." The CEO of Tag Heuer was here, and like the head of LVMH, like the Arnault family. They're like, they were just here. I think it was Tudor was doing like champagne and like had like race cars out everywhere. And then it's just like you can try on any kind of watch you want. You want to try on that Longa one? It was there. You could try it on. You want to try on basically any watch you wanted in the world, which I found myself trying on a lot of watches this weekend. It's a fun experience. So go try on some watches and go watch an F1 race.
Yeah. I could imagine that for that weekend, like they basically make a call to all their stores. Like, what do you have? Bring it over here. Send it over here. What do you have? Send it over here.
There were
there's a better chance
deals
of it being, There
were some deals to be had. My luckily conscience kicked in and said, you don't need a brand new Seamaster 300 right now.
Not to celebrate? Come on. To celebrate your Vegas GP? Come on.
Can I tell you, the watch I tried on that has been in my head since that race, the Heuer glass box Panda. It's the silver dial it's technically 3 subdials, but it looks like 2. Oh man, I'm in trouble. Like that watch is now moved to the top of my list.
Oh my! And that is a beautiful watch.
Yeah, and I don't know, motorsports, Tag Heuer. There's a connection there, and I might not love most tags that are out right now, but man, that is a good watch. But it's a little rich for my blood, even though they were giving me, they're making it enticing. I'll say that. I still had to hold back.
Oh man.
Yeah.
But ladies and gents, that is it for this week and the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, you could reach me at Ready Set Watch. You could reach Amavir at MetaWorldCool on Instagram, or just comment to the post of this episode. We can't wait to see you next week. Well, is it next week?
Yeah, I think it's Sunday.
Wow. We are going to... I know Qatar. We have Qatar. Is it Qatar?
Mm-hmm. Qatar and then Abu Dhabi to finish.
Abu Dhabi, yep. So we are going to Qatar. Well, we're not going, but the F1 World is going to Qatar. Interesting track. It's interesting rest of the storylines that need to be played out. We still need to find out who's going to win this constructors title. Yeah. So yeah, can't wait. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye.